Ugh, that makes you so frustrated. You just want to snap all your clubs in two. Do you feel like when you get over that important chip shot, maybe late in the round, to win a hole, win a match, or just to play a really good round, put up a good score, you start to chunk them, you start to thin them, the hands get really tight, everything gets jittery and shaky and quick. When you really want to be smooth and confident over the ball, it just doesn't seem like that's possible. Well, there's actually some really common instruction, and if you follow this, it works really good, but only for a certain type of chip. I'm going to talk about what type of chip that is, when you can use that type of shot, and how if you try to apply that same technique to all your chips and pitches, it can really destroy your confidence in your game. You get really handsy and you get really jittery over it when those shots matter the most. By the end of this video, if you follow these steps, you're going to feel really confident over the ball. You're going to know that you can step up to any chip shot and knock it close. Let's go and get started. Now be sure to subscribe to this channel right now. I have tons of great videos that are really going to help you on all parts of your game coming out this year, but you're not going to be notified unless you hit that subscribe button. Also click that thumbs up, that really helps us out. Post your comment down below, I'd love to hear from you. All right, so what's this shot that only works sometimes and can really hurt your other shots? And that is what I call the putt chip. And that's where the idea is that we're going to use our putting stroke to hit this chip shot. There's a variety of ways that we have to do this, but this actually works really well if we do this really close to the green. So if I'm only, 20 or 30 feet from this hole, it can be really easy just to put the ball up there and be pretty consistent with it. So how does this work exactly? Well, number one, you want to take your putting stance. You want to make this feel like a putting stroke. So as I set up this golf ball, I'm going to take the width of my stance I would normally if I'm putting. The second piece here is that instead of having my normal grip and having the shaft kind of on an angle here, I'm going to raise this club up a little bit. So now the toe is down, the heel is a little bit up on the ground. And what this does is this takes this leading edge of this, or the flat part, the sole of the club, and it tilts it up this way. Now that's much less likely to grab in some of the grass. If only my toe is touching, it's going to kind of brush through the grass. It's going to have much less chance of getting stuck and digging, that kind of thing. So with those hands up, that helps it to glide through the turf a little bit easier. The third thing here, I want to use a fairly low lofted club. So I'm not using a sand wedge, a pitching wedge, anything like that. I'm really using like a 7-iron, 8-iron, 9-iron, somewhere around in there to get these little putt chips. And then finally, I'm really locking my legs. When you putt, one thing that all great putters have in common is they don't really move their lower body. So as I'm making this little chip putt, I'm not moving my knees at all. They stay perfectly still. You're locking in your hands and arms. You're kind of getting a little forward shaft lean, and you can kind of imagine all this being locked in. And all I'm doing as I go back and forth is that stays locked in, I rock it back and forth, and that's going to be just like a putting stroke, only we're chipping off the green. Now that can be really handy. These are actually pretty easy shots. It's not that tough when you're only 20 or 30 feet away, but there is some problems with this. So as you start to get a little farther from the green, you're not going to be able to hit them as close doing this. And here's the reason why. When I putt, if you think about even a pretty long putt, maybe I take my putter back to here. That would be a pretty long putt as I'm coming back and through. That's about all I feel comfortable with, keeping my knees still, keeping my body still, and still hitting this putt. Well, if I get rid of this 7-iron, and maybe I need to hit it over something, or I need the ball to check up a little bit faster, all of a sudden I switch to my sand wedge or lob wedge, and I do this same technique, the ball just isn't going to go very far. All right, so that bump and run shot, or that locked in putting stroke idea, works really good when I have to make a short stroke. So if I'm only taking it back a couple feet and taking it through a couple feet like I would be with a putter, I can stay really still with my lower body. I can stay locked in with my upper body. I can take a 7-iron, an 8-iron, a hybrid, just get the ball bumping up there, and it's really easy. But at some point, we get far enough away from the green, or we have trouble in the way. Imagine there's a bunker here in our way that we had to hit it over that bunker, to where that little short bump and run, locked in putting stroke style just isn't going to work. And if we try to have that same idea and have that locked in approach, that putting type approach, and we try to make that work when we're farther away, everything falls apart. So now if I'm farther away here, and I have my sand wedge. Let's imagine that there is a bunker or there is rough or something where I have to carry the ball on the green here. And now all of a sudden I'm trying to still keep my lower body still. I'm trying to lock everything up here at the top still. I just can't make that happen if I really use the technique the right way. The ball won't go far enough. So what you end up doing is you end up getting pretty jerky with the hands and wrists because you're trying to get more energy into it. And now all of a sudden we end up with this kind of mismatched, you know, jerky, jabby type stroke that can easily shoot it over the green or be well short of the green. All right, so now let's jump in on what the pros are doing to free things up. Now here, the main difference. One style, the putting style, everything's locked in, we're trying to control. This style, we're loosening everything up. So if you pay attention to my knees, and what you'll see with all great chippers, they're gonna let these knees pivot. So I'm not trying to lock those in, I'm letting those flow as though I was gonna just toss a golf ball up on the green. So if I do this, watch my knees here first and then we'll get into the details. So here I'm gonna let everything turn on through, let my body create momentum, and now I can easily just chip a ball up there. It's not very tough at all. I'm letting my body create the momentum. So with this one, and one of the reasons that this is so much better with your hands and arms, and you don't feel like you're jabby, is I'm letting my body rotate. My hips are rotating, my chest is rotating, and that's creating the momentum. If I just hold this club very softly in my hands, now all of a sudden it's creating momentum that's gonna hit the ball. If I try to lock that in, I have to create that speed with my hands and arms, and things get a little crazy. So that's the first key there. In order to do that, I'm gonna set up with my heels almost touching. You'll see a lot of great chippers doing this. And I'm also gonna open my feet a little bit toward the target. That makes things easier for me to open up and pivot on through this shot. That's gonna allow me to use my body to create that momentum. I'm also, instead of locking my wrist in and keeping that really tight and rigid with my hands higher, I'm gonna go ahead and just let my hands hang freely and let my wrist stay really soft as I'm doing this. So as I'm going back and through, you can see my knees pivot and everything else just kind of goes along for the ride. I get a little bit of wrist action, I get a little bit of wrist hinge, just completely fine. I'm not trying to lock it in and guide it. I'm letting the momentum of my body create that speed, create that momentum. So you can see there, it's really easy to hit these clean when you let your body do the work. So those are the main keys there. When we're hitting the putt type shot, that's completely fine if you're really close to the green and you can make this stroke that just goes back to here and back to here. At some point, that's not gonna be a big enough stroke. Or at some point, we're not gonna be able to roll the ball across the ground because there's a bunker in the way or there's rough in the way, and we're gonna have to make a bigger stroke. At that point, when you make that bigger stroke, instead of trying to lock things in, free things up. Ankles close together, feet open toward the target, my body creates the momentum, and my wrists stay nice and loose. Now that we've talked about how to free up your swing and feel confident over any of these shots because now my body's creating momentum, how do we control the distance? Maybe you have a 20-yard shot, a 50-yard shot, a 70-yard shot. How do I know how far to hit that? Well, I have a great system called the clock system, and I'm gonna go over that video, preview that video here in just 1 second. If you wanna dial in those wedge distances, all you need to do is click the card that pops up on your screen or the link down below in the description, and I'll go over the clock swing with you. Pitch shot could be anywhere from right by the green all the way back to probably 50 or 60 yards or so. And that's what you're gonna wanna do when you wanna get a little bit more spin and get the ball a little bit more up in the air. We're gonna go ahead and let the wrist set a little bit more, have a little bit more club action, get the ball to go a little higher in the air with a little bit more spin. So let me go ahead and describe what is a good pitch shot so that you know what you're really going for. I think we gotta start from there, start from contact. So as I make contact, I want to be coming in very shallow to the ground. So I don't want to be taking much of a divot. I don't want to be hitting down into the ground. As the club releases and we have a flat spot where the club travels very level with the ground for 5 or 6 inches on these pitch shots. So when that happens, let me go ahead and exaggerate. As my hand is coming down, my hands are close to the ground. As this club gets closer and closer to the ground, my hands move up. As the club moves down, now you're seeing them having this flat spot.